disaster. They've just been disappointing. And it's a failure at every level, from the front office to the head coach to the players.
When this team was assembled over the summer and predicted to win a championship, and so it's just, I don't really have words for this season.
One of the most disappointing years in Laker history, in terms of what was expected.
Right, relative to expectation.
Coming into the 2021 season, this Lakers team came out with major expectations. They were the betting favorite to win it all opening up the season. However, as we know, this team did not live up to these imposing expectations. They finished the season with a measly 33-49 record, even missing the play-in game. This team was considered to be a super team. They have 5 or 6 future Hall of Famers, and LeBron still in his prime, year 19. We as NBA fans hear the term super team thrown out all the time. But what exactly is a super team? As soon as a star signs with another team, somebody out there will immediately be calling them a super team. But in my opinion, it goes deeper than that. Some super teams are successful, while others just come up short. Generally, a super team has a big 3, and of that big 3, there will be an MVP player and 2 all-star players next to them. And all 3 of these players will be considered future Hall of Famers, and that, in my opinion, is what consists of a super team in the modern NBA. Along with the stacked teams, if these teams don't finish out with a championship, it's a bust. Much less don't even make the playoffs. It's considered a failure of a season for them and their fans. Some NBA super teams are successful, and they're super successful quickly. This 2008 Boston Celtics team won it in their first year together, and we as fans obviously have heard how many times over and over again how the 2008 Boston Celtics team won an NBA title. Some super teams are put together and let's just say they don't do too well, like this 2004 Lakers team. They were the clear-cut favorites to win the NBA title with adding 2 future Hall of Famers to a prime Shaq and Kobe. Over and above that, a super team is not just a very good team. It's a very good team whose best players were number 1 options on their previous teams, such as the Heatles when they were put together. Overall, like mentioned previously, a super team is a good team that adds another all-star to their roster. This could be through free agency or trade, like when the Nets added Harden through trade, even though that experiment already failed, or when the Heat added LeBron and Bosh, who were both the first options on their team. One of the first modern-day super teams of the 2000s included Shaq and Kobe. They had just three-peated, but fresh off a season where they were a 5 seed and lost in the conference semifinals, thus ending a chance of a 4-peat. Heartbreaking for Kobe, who wanted to pass his idol and MJ in rings. They came back next season with vengeance. And what do you think they did? Oh, they just added 2 future Hall of Famers in Karl Malone and Gary the Glove Payton. Although these guys were a little bit older, Malone being 40 in his first year with the Lakers and Payton being 35, they were not far removed from their All-Star years. Payton fresh off an All-Star game and putting up similar numbers to when he was an All-Star in his prime, and Karl Malone 2 years off his last year All-Star appearance. But at the end of the day, it all really didn't matter. The all 4 Pistons just absolutely demolished them in a 5-game series, where the Pistons were unbelievable. They had the best defense in the league and were holding them to 81 points a game, where in the regular seasons the Lakers super team was averaging 97 a game. That's a whole 16 points less a game, and some games the Lakers weren't even breaking 70. This playoff series in essence ended the Shaq and Kobe era. We know the whole deal. Shaq blamed Kobe, Kobe blamed Shaq, and after that, their team chemistry was no good. So we all know the great super teams in history. These teams all came together and won at least one championship within a couple of years of joining forces. Yeah, these teams are fine, but they're no fun to talk about. They had a storybook finish, finished with the multiple rings, and did what they were supposed to do, to just win a ring. As NBA fans, we either love these teams or we hated them. I'll admit, there is something special of seeing some of the all-time great talent come together and win a championship together. But at the same time, watching the Warriors-Cavs finals for the 4th time in a row did get pretty old. This 2013 Nets team was put together any way imaginable. This Nets team had no regard for their future of their franchise. They mortgaged their future for a well past their prime Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry. This move didn't even make sense at the time. And looking back at it, it still makes me wonder what was going through the front office's heads at the time. This team did have championship aspirations at the time, but considering how old the team was, they became bad and bad quickly. After all these old heads left, they became bad and even became a meme. Nets pick, TT, and Shump. NBA fans were going crazy because they thought that combination of players and picks could get anything they wanted, especially Cavs fans. That pick ended up being Colin Sexton. Luckily for Nets and their fans, this team had a pretty competent front office and rebuilt pretty fast. They had another super team a few years down the road with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. However, this team obviously didn't work out, and it's a different story for a different day. So what exactly causes a super team to fail? With my extensive research, I came up with 3 main reasons why a team might fail. 2 main issues being age and injuries, and the last being chemistry issues. The 04 Lakers team had a little bit of all 3. Obviously, with prime Shaq and Kobe, this team was bound to make the finals. However, with a 35-year-old Peyton, a 40-year-old Malone, who had a knee injury, they couldn't win at all. Team chemistry issues included Karl Malone making advances at Kobe's wife. After this, he would go on and say while wearing a cowboy hat, he was hunting for young Mexican girls to Vanessa. That's pretty creepy, Karl, if you ask me. After, Karl offered to fight Kobe if he was mad at for what he said earlier. Safe to say, team chemistry was not at 100. In 2012, Kobe and the Lakers were, again, a couple years removed from a championship. They were on a 2-year drought, so what'd they do? They added a prime Dwight Howard, straight from Orlando, Steve Nash, straight from Phoenix, and both of them were coming off all-star years. However, Steve Nash was simply not the same for the Lakers. Team with Kobe, Nash, Howard, Powell, and Metta World Peace came into the season with big expectations. Injuries started out rough with this team. Steve Nash breaking his leg in one of the first games of the season, it really didn't help this team. This caused Nash to miss 32 games on the year, and that didn't help team chemistry issues. Pau Gasol going down with a plantar fasciitis injury caused him to miss a majority of the season as well. Dwight coming off a major back surgery, he just wasn't the same for the Lakers. Those boulder shoulders looking a lot smaller for the Lakers fans. Because of all these injuries to the Lakers, this caused Kobe to play 39 minutes a game, at age 34, just to keep this team afloat. Ultimately, it caused him to tear his Achilles because of the load he carried. But you know Kobe. After his torn Achilles, he came back into the game and hit both his free throws. This team was cursed from the beginning. All these players were older, slower, more injury prone by the time they got together. Team chemistry was a major factor too. Long story short, Dwight thought he was Akeem Olajuwon, and Kobe did not get along with him because he thought he was childish. And the Mike D'Antoni offense just didn't help this team either. It could be the injuries, it could be that Dwight wanted to post touch every time down the court, who knows. 2013 Nets super team was different, safe to say. They were older, put together seemingly out of thin air, but they were just a bunch of hoopers who liked to play basketball. It seemed like something you would put together at a rec center. They managed to make the playoffs as a 4 seed, but quickly got upset in the first round. This team had injuries, but at the end of the day, they just had no true team identity, which caused them to ultimately fail. Coming into this year, some would say the Lakers team had a super team. The Lakers had a combined age of 30 years old entering the year, 2 years older than the next closest team. LeBron, we mean this in the nicest way possible, but we are going to be talking about your team's age. It's because this team was a retirement home for NBA players. There were only a few players on this team that I wouldn't consider well past their prime by the time they were on this Lakers team. This Lakers team had a little bit of everything that could go wrong, did go wrong. Starting with Anthony Davis seemingly getting hurt on every single play this year. He was even nicknamed Street Clothes by the great Charles Barkley. Even LeBron, the man known for his durability, has been having injury issues this year too. Thus causing team chemistry issues with Vogel and the other coaches, and then even throwing LeBron and AD under the bus. It's safe to say we won't be seeing him in a Lakers uniform next season. The fit with Russ was bad anyways. He was a ball-dominant player who can't shoot, and it's not going to work with LeBron James. So the next time you see a super team and you see a bunch of older players who all come together and are ring chasing, please think to yourself, how old are they? Are they going to be healthy for the whole year? And if the answer is no to either of those, odds are this team's going to be a failure. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.